Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about aptitude. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, hi Frederick, can you share with everyone approximately how many of your coworkers across all the organizations that you have worked with were genuinely suited for, interested in, or had the aptitude for the work that they were doing? Sure. So this is going to be a little bit tricky for me to answer because the thing that I I try to avoid doing, which is something that I try to be very transparent with when I talk to coworkers, and it's not just because I actually generally feel that way. It is a little bit of for personal survival as well, because one thing that I found, which honestly, it was a little bit weird to me when I first understood it because I've never really been the sort of person to do it myself. But I figured out that my personal interest in software development, I knew that for fairly early on that is a little bit above the curve. Like I have a very like for me programming and development and like solving complex problems and IT and stuff like that. This is a genuine interest that I have. I really enjoy doing it even as a hobby. Like I would probably do it for a fraction of the money that I'm being paid today just because I really love doing it, right? And in the earliest days when I was in school, it took me a while to understand that I don't really have peers who feel the same way. And so I made a lot of people dissuaded from interacting with me because my passion is so high that they felt overwhelmed or annoyed or like all these other things. Like because they mean most of them felt that yeah, programming is something I could do, right? I find it mildly interesting, but they didn't have like this nerdiness that I might have had. And it took a while for me to understand that that can actually be either annoying, but it can also be intimidating. And I still have that problem today. And that's why I try to, and I actually say these words to people when I get that vibe that, oh, I'm coming on a little bit too strong here, or someone feels like, especially the ones, the coworkers that I have that might be a little bit more introverted or so forth, where I've been in situations, guys, where I can remember just the other day we had an interview with a new candidate or a software developer who had a little bit more of the nerdiness vibe, and the interviewer, I was just sitting in on that interview because she was more or less learning how to do interviews, and I was just there to help her coach. She didn't really. I mean, she's a software developer and she knows her stack, right? But she doesn't have like this width of all different technologies and what's going on in the community and stuff like that. Because she's a mom with a husband, and like she has her own life apart from coding, of course. And so I could very clearly hear that she was a little bit unsure, and so she asked me, "Can you take over?" And then I go in and nerd out with that person that was in the interview, right? And then afterwards, I talked to her, and she said that, "Yeah, but I don't know all these things, Frederick, and I don't know as much of like these different trends and stuff like that you do." And I said, "You don't have to worry. It's not a competition. So in this specific interview, all you have to do is to be a pleasant time. You don't have to be as nerdy as the candidate or as nerdy as me. You just have to ask the questions that you feel are necessary in order to evaluate, is this person going to be able to work in your company? Because it doesn't matter if they have 100 different interests outside of work. What matters is, can they do this job well? Will they be able to meet the expectations, the OKRs and deadlines and all that stuff? So then if they have like a super passionate interest that like stretches wildly over everybody else, that doesn't matter because it's not a competition, it's a job. And that's the thing that I try to make sure that people understand, that one of the dangerous parts about being someone who's very passionate about software is if you start looking at yourself as the bottom layer. And you have to be a little bit honest with yourself here and ask yourself, am I more interested or just normally interested or below average? Like, try to do a bit of soul searching. Where do you feel that you are in terms of passion and talent and stuff like that? And the easiest way to actually figure that out is, of course, work in a lot of different companies, see a lot of different teams, and see roughly where are the averages. I've done this, so I feel like I have my idea of what an average software developer looks like. And if we go with what I see as average, I would say that the number of people who can deliver and sort of meet expectations within, like, if we talk about, well, this is the trickiest part for me. The average software team cannot deliver software without producing issues or having problems or so forth and so forth, because software development is quite complicated. They can write code, but most of them can't write tests, for example. They don't really know how to maintain their system over time and things like that. There's tons and tons of issues. So I would say that of all, if I just ballpark it, of all the people I've ever worked with who are able to meet basic expectations, I would say it's maybe 2 of 5 developers that I worked with. Most of the teams that are doing really, really well are usually doing really, really well because they have 1 or 2 really passionate people, or some people who really know how to do the things, and they sort of help, they sort of weigh up the others who might be struggling a little bit. So just producing code without, like, just producing code, if we just consider nothing else, then yes, basically everybody I've ever worked with is suitable for that role, because writing code is in of itself not the thing that's usually hard. Once you get into like the mid-levels and stuff like that, even the juniors can produce code. It's very rare for me to find like a coworker who struggles with just shipping a story. Those people usually don't survive very long and get fired, but the people who remain are the people who just can deliver something. The tricky part is, as I said, where do we draw the line? Is that good enough? Is that someone who's genuinely suited for their role? Well, the whole industry is built that way, basically. On average, you're going to find quite a lot of, like, I promise you this much. I feel like I can go as far out and say this at the very least. You will probably, during the course of your career, work on more software projects where, like, the thing is working, but it's not working well. There's a bunch of legacy, a lot of issues, and so forth, because that is the norm. And if you ask me, is that something that happens if it's someone who's genuinely suited and like have really aptitude for this? No, I would say not, but it is the norm. So I have to sort of just swallow my notions of what is like good work and say, yeah, they can produce something, but it's not something that I would call like quality, and say that that is the case. And if that is the case, then it's 4 out of 5. But as I said, the times that I've worked on projects where things are really working and they're working really, really well, that is a minority. And those people, well, as I said, 2 of 5, 1 of 5, something like that. It's very, very rare. And it's really the reason, well, in my opinion, at the very least, the thing that I argue for is that is because software development is a talent industry, or like it's talent based. It's just the same. It's the same thing as any craft. Like if you were to be a carpenter or an artist or something like that, like you have different people. Everybody can learn how to do it, but the people who do it really, really well, they're usually fewer of those than there are people who like just do the job. And it's sadly enough not the sort of job that you can like. There are quite a lot of jobs, guys, where it doesn't really matter if you're the best of the best or if you're just average, because you're still going to be able to deliver a quality of experience for whoever is consuming the thing that you're doing. This is not one of those industries. So what I want you to take away from this is that if you asked me how many, I would say that 4 out of 5 are genuinely like they're suited for doing the work of a software developer once they've learned how to get code out of the door. But if you talk about people who are suited for it, like really interested and have the aptitude and stuff like that, it's like 1 in 5. If you're going to talk to me, it depends on the role as well. If you're going to ask me like how many people would you say are like top notch, like they really do things really well, they have really gotten how to deliver software with quality without a lot of issues, and like in a good like basically to produce software at the level that is truly outstanding work, it's less than 1 in 5. Like it's a handful of people I've worked with that are at that level. And the reason being very simply because the norm, as I said, guys, is that you have different levels of interest. For most people, this is just a job. And so if they usually learn to the point where I can ship software and not get fired, that's it. That's where they stop. And that's what I call mid-level developers usually. That's roughly where the mid-levels are. The people who become like really senior and like really really good and so forth, they usually go further than that. They keep on experimenting and showing an interest and stuff like that, and that's not the norm, I'm very sorry to say. It's really 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 not. It's so far from it that it's hilarious. I can count, depending on who you're asking for, like my favorite one is truly senior front-end developers. I count on my 5 fingers, me personally at the very least, how many people I've met that are true masters of front-end development. I've been fortunate enough to work with a few of those, and I can tell you that when they work on a front-end project, for example, for some reason it just works. There's no legacy or like a lot of issues, these classic ones that we talk about that cause a lot of issues and stuff like that. Same thing with backend developers who write really really good backend systems. The ones that are really really good, everything sort of just works and everything is sort of simple when they are involved. And if you work for long enough, I think that you can sort of relate to that it's kind of rare to work on any code base that just sort of is in a fairly decent state. There's not a lot of issues, everything's sort of undramatic and so forth. The norm is that there's a lot of pain and ache and headaches and like bugs and stuff like that that come from every single thing that you want to do. And that is because, as I said, bottom layer is just get the code working. The next tier is to do it really really well. That is a whole different story, I would say. Have a great day.